Okay, so I decided to do something really stupid. I tried to beat Elden Ring using only the Dragon Communion Harpoon. The biggest problem with that being, you're only allowed to carry 5, and you can't craft in combat, so you have to kill the boss in 5 hits. At least bosses that are in arenas. Bosses in the open world are significantly easier because you can simply run away to craft more, and as long as you don't rest, the boss won't regain their health. With the harpoon being a DLC item, I of course had to use Cheat Engine for the cookbook and materials, as well as a few other things. The biggest roadblock was Margit because killing him gives you another talisman slot and access to Stormvale Castle and subsequently Godric and his Great Rune, which is almost mandatory because you need really high strength for the harpoon to be able to kill bosses like Morgott and Moog. Now, what's funny is that I killed Margit 2 hours into the run, and that was after cheesing a lot of bosses in Caelid and leveling up my strength a lot, when really I could have killed him much sooner. Something interesting about the Dragon Communion Harpoon is that it is the only consumable item, I'm aware of at least, that you can actually charge by holding down the button. This not only increases the damage, but it's also affected by the charge attack talisman and physic tier, so had I known that, I would have done things very differently. And it's only until after killing Radahn and fighting Renala that I realized the harpoon could be charged, which is another unfortunate part of this run because I used summons to kill Radahn because my damage was too low, and I wanted to gain access to Mimic Tier. Now, Mimic Tier ended up being useless, so that didn't matter in the end, but Radahn is a boss that would have been easily killed had I known you could charge the harpoon. Another problem is that I was using buffs that would overwrite each other, like Blood Boil Aromatic and Shibari's Howl, and Golden Vow and Rallying Cry. I eventually figured that out, and had I known Howl and Blood Boil don't work together, I wouldn't have leveled up Faith at all, and would probably have went with either Hero or Samurai as my starting class. I went with Vagabond because it has good strength and dex, like the Samurai, but it has one more point in Faith, which is 1 level saved when having to upgrade Faith for Howl. I made countless mistakes attempting this, and I would do it over again if it felt at all possible that I could beat the game, but all it took was looking at the amount of health that Fire Giant has to realize that I don't really have much of a chance. I did end up making it to the DLC, but there are bosses blocking access to the other exaltation buffs, so I would have to use Cheat Engine to get those, and also for any materials needed in proccing the different effects like Sleep and Madness. That's the only way you'd even have a chance at dealing enough damage, and even then, it might not be enough. There might be a better talisman combination that allows you to deal more damage than what I went with, but I doubt it. I made it past Morgott and Moog, and I'm happy with that. And I would really like to see if anyone could get further without just cheating in runes and leveling up your strength and dexterity to max, because that's something that I didn't do, even though it would have been really easy. I acquired all levels and talismans completely legit. The only item that I acquired with Cheat Engine that I couldn't get myself was the Seppuku Ash of War to proc Lord of Blood's Exaltation, because the damage for Morgott isn't high enough without Lord of Blood's Exaltation, at least initially. Maybe with some more strength, I could get away with only using Kindred of Rot and Mushroom Crown, because that's certainly what happens here at the end of the fight. I have 2 harpoons left, and I'm able to do enough damage here to finish him off. But I really don't see it being possible without Lord of Blood's Exaltation, because I'm doing only 1,300 damage as opposed to around 2,000. So maybe it's possible with only Kindred Rot and Mushroom Crown, but I'm not sure. I'm not confident about that. Anything that required farming, though, I used Cheat Engine for, like the materials, and also Mushroom Crown. So anything that you would have to like farm an enemy for, it just didn't seem reasonable to do any farming for this, because I would have to use my harpoons in order to kill the enemies, because I was using the harpoon for everything. So I would just have to harpoon an enemy a bunch of times, farm from materials in order to craft, blood boil and the roped fetid pot. So I'd have to farm a bunch for all of the materials to craft that stuff. But then I'd have to use Cheat Engine to give myself the materials for the harpoons that I used. So it just didn't make any sense, right? So farming, I just didn't do any of that. But anyways, I hope that someone attempts this, and I might do some testing with the different kinds of exaltation buffs and talismans just to see what the damage is like with all of them active. But honestly, I'm really not good at menuing, so I don't think I would be able to do it and have all the buffs active for long enough to even have a good enough effect. So if I was a little bit better at menuing, maybe it would be more feasible. But honestly, even if I cheated the items in with Cheat Engine, I don't think I would even be able to use them effectively. I'm just not that good. But yeah, anyways, that's pretty much all that I wanted to say.